everyone, Emily here again, and what's up? We're at Loarfest in Knoxville, Tennessee. We have here 4 Lloyd Loar signed mandolins. I have here Tom's July 9th, 1923. It's from the same tree that Monroe's mandolin was from. It's pretty nice, it's real light, real beautiful mandolin. I'm gonna pass it over to Tom next.
Okay, I have a late 20s fern mandolin, which is one number away from Bobby Osborne's famous fern mandolin, in really pristine condition. It came from the original owner through a guy here in Knoxville, and I ended up with it many years later. And it's considered one of the top-end fern models. And fern models, for those that ask, is not a Loar. It's made after Loar left the building in late 1924. But it was made by the same people, Gibson, who made the Lloyd Loars. So it has a connection. When we say Loarfest, it means really any pre-war F5. So it could be anything from 1922 up to 1942, which would be the last of the pre-wars.
Who are you?
My name is Mike Schroeder, and this is a March 31st, 1924 Gibson F5 mandolin that's signed by Lloyd Loar.
And you have the classic Lloyd Loar right now.
I do. My name is Bill Thibodeau. I'm from Rhode Island, and I'm holding this wonderful Lloyd Loar. Tom, can you explain a little bit about this one that I'm holding?
She can. Oh, the only thing I know about is we've known the F5 researchers have known about that Loar for a long time. We knew who owned it. We knew the serial number. It could have been part of the original Lewis Good. No, not Lewis Good. Lewis Good had a list who was starting to document the Lloyd Loars, and we picked up that number from somebody. And then Darrell Wolf and myself and a few others added to the list. Mm-hmm. The first published list of Loar numbers was in a Bluegrass Unlimited in 1970 something, very small list. And Darrell and I both about the same time said we need an updated list. And now we have the F5 Journal, which is part of the Mandolin Cafe archives, where you can log on to mandolincafe.com and find your Lloyd Loar. If your Lloyd Loar is not there, you need to call somebody to get it there. It's a security thing. If your Lloyd Loar is stolen, we have a public record that you were the owner. It's kept private, and you can recover it a whole lot easier than trying to explain to a policeman, I've had that Loar for 90 years and you got no other proof. By the F5 Journal having a Lloyd Loar in documentation, we have photographs of it front and back. A back of a Lloyd Loar with the grains is like fingerprints. A thief can refinish it, but he cannot change that pattern in the wood. So it's a good thing you have one registered. That all these Loars are registered in the F5 Journal, so it's a good thing to have. For those of you watching the video that may have a Lloyd Loar that's not registered, do check it out.
It's a good
Tom,
time.
you've got an interesting photo there of Dave Apollon.
Dave
Could
Apollon,
you show that
yes.
And talk a little bit about
Dave,
that?
Yeah, who was Dave Apollon?
Dave Apollon was a Ukrainian who endorsed Gibson mandolins. And he came over here from the Ukraine, Kiev, I believe, and played gypsy style Russian mandolin, and then landed in New York City for the vaudeville era in the 1920s and started playing mandolin music. And he brought his own mandolin orchestra to back him up. He ended up with a band from Filipino mandolin players, and he was like the director, the leader of the band, and it was a hot thing in the 20s to listen to mandolin music. And when the F5 came out in late 1922, obviously they wanted Mr. Apollon to have one, so they made him an endorser, gave him a Lloyd Loar, which was in that photograph I just showed, and he kept it a long time. And we tried to track that Loar down. And an interesting story is a cousin of mine up in Nova Scotia, Canada, in Halifax, had a bluegrass band, and we corresponded in mail, and he sent me a photograph, and I immediately noticed it matched the photograph, this actual photograph of the pattern of the sunburst of Dave Apollon's missing Lloyd Loar. So my cousin, I said, anybody ever told you you had Dave Apollon's Loar? And he said, no. The story I got was it was a sailor came up here from the sea during the war, and a drunken sailor sold it to a bar guy at the bar, and so, and ended up, then I ended up buying it. This Fred Isenhour was his name. And when he was told it was Dave Apollon's Loar by me, he was pretty excited, and then he sold it couple of years later. And another friend of mine, Evan Riley, bought the mandolin from Fred. And then Evan and I got together, and I got to actually play the Dave Apollon Loar. So it's an interesting history on the Apollon Loar. I got close to it. And of course, Dave Apollon was a well-known mandolin virtuoso.
He was awesome.
He was, yes, he was awesome. The story I like to tell about Apollon, when David Grisman was starting to get into the dog music, they call it now, he latched on to Jethro Burns of the comedy team Homer and Jethro. And Jethro was a master of the mandolin and could do the jazz. And David Grisman was following Jethro Burns, who by this time was an old man. And he said, where did you learn to do jazz on the mandolin? He said, well, Dave Apollon, of course. And Grisman's like, who? Who is this Dave Apollon? So he immediately started to track down Dave Apollon. This would have been 1972-ish, and Dave had just died in Las Vegas, where he was playing mandolin in a casino at the Desert Inn in Las Vegas. And David Grisman was able to talk to the widow and get a lot of information about Dave Apollon, and he became a Dave Apollon fan, has released a lot of his recordings and records for the fans of Dave Apollon, and he credits knowing Dave Apollon to influence him in dog music, which I guess really started in '73 with Mule Skinner. It was A Minor Swing. Was that the name of the song on the Mule Skinner? That started with Richard Green and Bill Keith, and of course the late great Clarence White. And that kind of started what we call now as dog music, which I don't play it. I don't play it anymore. You guys play it?
Sometimes.
You do the dogs?
A little
I need to
bit.
be better at it.
Yeah, a little eat my dust and stuff.
Yeah.
No, I could do a couple of them, but I'm not into the dog stuff. I'm mostly Monroe style bluegrass, traditional mandolin playing. Okay.
Well, thank you, Tom.
All right.
I think we were gonna, this one there turned 100 last week, so we're gonna do some happy birthday. And then we're gonna play a fiddle tune. And how about Billy kick us on some Bill Cheetham?